They said it wasn't humanly possible. All the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy.
The Nintendo Game Boy is an 8-bit handheld game console designed by the legendary engineer Gunpei Yokoi, the so-called father of games and inventor of the Game & Watch. He is credited for shaping Nintendo's DNA and pioneering the handheld console market. Released in 1989, the Game Boy set the standard for handheld gaming, revolutionizing the industry with its iconic design, interchangeable game cartridges, and long-lasting battery life. On the first day of its release, 40,000 units flew off the shelves, with the entire starting inventory of 300,000 sold effortlessly within 2 months. Despite being less technologically advanced than other 4th-generation handhelds that featured backlit color screens, the Game Boy was a huge success due to its affordability and exceptional game library. Popular titles included Tetris, Donkey Kong Land, and one of my personal favorites, Motocross Maniacs, which featured addictive nitrous oxide boosts for jumping and extreme airtime across levels. Since then, the Game Boy and its successor, the Game Boy Color, have sold over 118 million units worldwide, cementing its place in gaming history as the ultimate handheld gaming device. Now let's look at the Game Boy and what really makes it as great as it is. The Game Boy first made its debut in Japan, April 21st, 1989. It quickly made its way over to North America 3 months later, and then to Europe the following year. With the success of the Nintendo Entertainment System, Yokoi pitched his vision of creating a handheld system that would play interchangeable games to Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi. Yokoi's goal was to build an affordable machine that would have mass market appeal, rather than focus on cutting-edge technology that would drive the price up. Compact, durable, and lightweight, the Game Boy took design cues from the Game & Watch and the NES. It was powered by 4 AA batteries, which provided well over 15 hours of gameplay, making it perfect for gaming on the go. At the core of the system was an 8-bit Sharp LR35902, running at just over 4 MHz, which was slightly more powerful than the NES, which featured 8 kilobytes of internal SRAM. The Game Boy featured an 8-way directional pad, or D-pad, which was first developed by Yokoi for the Donkey Kong Country handheld in 1982. And 4 familiar action buttons, A, B, Select, and Start, as well as a sliding on and off power switch, which also served the purpose of preventing you from accidentally pulling out of game during use, volume control, contrast dials, a game cartridge slot, a single speaker, and a 3.5mm headphone jack, providing stereo sound, which allowed you to play games in secrecy without your parents ever knowing that you were still up. The Game Boy's 2.6-inch dot matrix LCD has a 160 by 144 resolution and is a 2-bit monochrome that produces 4 different shades of gray, while the background was tinted green to help contrast with the LCD's indigo hue. The display was a major leap forward from the earlier Game & Watch series, which was heavily limited by their segmented LCDs with pre-printed overlays that could only be used to play one game. The importance of the Game Boy screen was so great that the project was given the internal codename Dot Matrix Game. No longer just for fun or a simple diversion, the Game Boy was designed to deliver a fully fledged video game experience. The low power consumption screen was also a major factor in its success, compared to the competition from rivals such as the Atari Lynx or the Sega Game Gear. These handhelds, with their full backlit, fully colored displays, would quickly eat through their 6 AA batteries in less than 5 hours. In contrast, the Game Boy, with its slightly bulky by today's standard design, had 4 batteries, which were still small enough to fit in larger pockets. Truly an impressive feat for what was seen as a miniature arcade cabinet at the time. Gaming was no longer going to be limited to the home for popular Nintendo titles. Back in the 1980s, dedicated handheld machines like Pac-Man or Space Invaders were quite the norm. But with the launch of the Game Boy, you now had a console that could play any game pack you slotted into the back of it. This gave traditional gamers the freedom to take their gaming wherever they went, on the bus ride to school, during lunch breaks at work, or anytime you had a few spare moments. The Game Boy also managed to bring gaming to a much wider audience, thanks to its affordability and versatility. Anyone could find a game that appealed to them and enjoy the convenience of portable gaming. Plus, with the pack-in Game Link cable accessory, gamers could now connect multiple Game Boys and unlock multiplayer gameplay for head-to-head versus or cooperative play, extending the enjoyment for gamers at all levels. Whether you're looking for something fun to play today, or just wanting to revisit some of your favorite childhood gaming experiences, here are 3 popular Game Boy titles that are sure to please.
Became obsessed with Tetris. on the Game Boy. I couldn't have a conversation with somebody without seeing the Tetris shapes behind them.
Tetris is a unique puzzle video game that is widely credited as the Game Boy's killer app. It topped sales charts in the US, selling over 7.5 million copies by 1992, and over 30 million copies worldwide by 1997. Rated as one of the best Nintendo games of all time, it is even the favorite version of the game by the creator Alexei Pajitnov. It was in fact so good that it upstaged even Mario as the title bundled for the North American and European releases, and was the first game to make use of the Game Link cable. The game involved manipulating 4 block Tetromino shapes as they fall. Stacking them without gaps would clear them in horizontal rows of similar blocks, an addictive challenge that will always keep you coming back for more. Secondly, consider reliving the nostalgia with Super Mario Land. The must-play side-scrolling platformer was requested by Nintendo's CEO, and made its debut as a launch title in 1989. Initially intended to be bundled with the Game Boy, this scaled-down game offers gripping gameplay similar to the classic 1985 NES title Super Mario Bros. Enjoy 12 levels of enemy avoiding, hazard jumping fun as you make your way to rescue Princess Daisy. Super Mario Land was an incredible success, surpassing Super Mario Bros. 3 with over 18 million copies sold worldwide. The sequel, Super Mario Land 2: 6 Golden Coins, followed in 1992, with more of a exploration-based level system and bigger, cleaner graphics. The title also introduced us to Wario for the first time, and was another huge hit with over 11 million copies sold. And finally, it wouldn't be a Game Boy video without talking about the absolute powerhouses that were Pokemon Red and Blue, introducing players for the first time to the world of Pocket Monsters, and they are an integral part of the Pokemon franchise. It was the second highest selling game series with over 20 million copies sold. Satoshi Tajiri found an entirely new way to utilize the Game Link cables. His plan was to create a truly social game where players would have their own personal collections that they could share, trade, and even compete with their friends. Nintendo legend Shigeru Miyamoto was the one to suggest to Tajiri that the game be released with different versions that contained different Pokemon. This was in an effort to force players to try to trade and socialize in order to complete their collections. The release of the 1997 anime series only served to propel the game's success even further. The Game Boy revolutionized the video game industry, becoming an overnight success and dominating the handheld market for an entire generation of gamers and non-gamers alike over its 14-year reign. Its impact on the gaming world was unprecedented, and thanks to its iconic design, expansive library of over 1,000 interchangeable game packs, and the incredible battery life that allowed you to enjoy hours of gaming on a single set of AA batteries. But the real genius behind the success of the Game Boy was its creator Gunpei Yokoi, and his design philosophy that we sometimes visit on the channel of lateral thinking of withered technology, which incorporated affordable and familiar components to create a timeless product that still captivates gamers to this day. He faced immense internal pressure within Nintendo to use higher-end technology, especially in the display, as competitors were offering larger screens with full-color graphics in their upcoming handhelds. But Nintendo took the risk and was betting on the game in Game Boy, believing that if the games were enjoyable, then people would play them. Their less is more strategy definitely paid off. The Game Boy succeeded, where the Atari's Lynx, despite its superior graphics and sound and screen, was a flop. The early 90s would see other rivals like the Sega Game Gear and Neo Geo Pocket also fail to make much of an impact on the handheld market in the early 90s. Nintendo's commitment to making great games rather than relying on flashy hardware was key to the Game Boy's success, which would pave the way for subsequent iterations like the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, and the Nintendo DS. We plan to cover the evolution of Nintendo's handhelds and explore some of the accessories such as the Light Boy, the Game Link cable itself, and the Super Game Boy. So be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell as I upload at really strange times, and leave a comment in the comment section below letting me know your favorite Game Boy memory. Until then, I'll catch you in the next one.